Hello y'all, welcome back to my channel. We are discussing currently the 48 laws of power. We are still on the first law, and this is the continuation of that law, which is the observance of the law. And it reads, in the early 1600s, the Italian astronomer and mathematician Galileo found himself in a precarious position. He depended on the generosity of great rulers to support his research, and so, like all Renaissance scientists, he would sometimes make gifts of his inventions and discoveries to the leading patrons of the time. Once, for instance, he presented a military compass he had invented to the Duke of Gonza. Then he dedicated a book explaining to the use of the compass to the Medicis. I think it's Medicis. Both rulers were grateful, and through them, Galileo was able to find more students to teach. No matter how great the discovery, however, his patrons usually paid him with gifts, not cash. This made for a life of constant insecurity and dependence. There must be an easier way, he thought. Galileo hit on a new strategy in 1610 when he discovered the moons of Jupiter. Instead of dividing the discovery amongst his patrons, giving one the telescope he had used, dedicating a book to another, and so on, and he had done in the past, he decided to focus exclusivity on Medicis. He chose the Medicis for one reason. Shortly after Cosimo, I had established the Medici dynasty in 1540. He had made Jupiter the mightiest of the gods. The Medici symbol, a symbol of a power that went beyond politics and banking, one linked to ancient Rome and its divinities. Galileo turned his discovery of Jupiter's moon into a cosmic event. Honoring the Medici's greatness, shortly after the discovery, he announced that the bright stars, the moons of Jupiter, offered themselves in the heavens. To his telescope at the time as Cosimo enthronement, he said that the number of the moons, 4, harmonized with the number of the Medicis, and that the moons orbited Jupiter at these 4 suns revolved around Cosimo, the dynasty's founder. More than coincidence, this showed that the heavens themselves reflected the dynasty founded the ascent of the Medici's family. After they dedicated the discovery to the Medicis, Galileo commissioned an emblem represented Jupiter sitting on a cloud with the 4 stars circling about him, and presented this to Cosimo as a symbol of his link to the stars. I see why I used to read with my finger when I was young. It is like real easy for you to lose your place, especially with me not reading with my glasses. In 1610, Cosimo and Galileo made his official court philosopher and mathematician with full salary. For a scientist, this was the coup of a lifetime. The days of begging for patronage were over. In one stroke, Galileo gained more with his new strategy than he had in years of begging. That reason is simple. All masters want to appear more brilliant than other people. Oh, that's so good. They do not care about science or truth or the latest invention. They care about their name and their glory. Galileo gave the Medicis infinitely more glory by linking their name with the cosmic force than he had by making them the patrons of some new scientific gadget or discovery. Scientists are not spared the vagaries of court life and patronage. They too must serve masters who hold the purse strings, and their great intellectual powers can make the masters feel insecure, as if he were only there to supply the funds. An ugly, ignorable job. I'm sorry, y'all, I'm kind of having an epiphany while I'm reading this at the same time. The producers of a great work wants to feel he is more than just the provider of the financing. He wants to appear creative and powerful, and also more important than the work produced in his name. Instead of insecurity, you must give him glory. Galileo did not challenge the intellectual authority of the Medicis with his discovery, or make them feel inferior in any way. By literally aligning them with the stars, he made them shine brightly amongst the courts of Italy. He did not outshine the masters. He made the masters outshine all others. Everyone has insecurities. When you show yourself in the world and display your talents, you naturally stir up all kinds of resentment, envy, and other manifestations of insecurity. This is to be expected. I wish somebody would have told me this sooner. This is a lot to swallow right now. I don't even remember reading this 10 years ago. You cannot spend your life worrying about the petty feelings of others. With those above you, however, you must take a different approach. When it comes to power, outshining the master is perhaps the worst mistake of all. Do not fool yourself into thinking that life has changed much since the days of Louis the 14th and the Medicis. Those who attain high standing in life are like kings and queens. They want to feel secure in their positions and superior to those around them in intelligence, wit, charm. It is a deadly but common misperception to believe that by displaying and vaunting your gifts and talents, you are winning the master's affection. Oh, wow. He may feign appreciation, but at his first opportunity, he will replace you with someone less intelligent, less attractive, less threatening. Just as Louis the 14th replaced the sparkling Forquet with the bland Colbert. And as with Louis, he will not admit the truth, but will find an excuse to rid himself of your presence. Y'all, when I tell you, you have no idea how much, wow. No one had more natural talents than Astoria Manfredi, Prince of Venezia, the most handsome of all the young princes of Italy. He captivated his subjects with his generosity and open spirit. In the year 1500, Caesar Borgia sieged Venezia. When the city surrendered, the citizens expected the worst from the cruel Borgia, who, however, decided to spare the town. He simply occupied its fortress, executed none of its citizens, and allowed Prince Manfredi, 18 at the time, to remain with his court in complete freedom. A few weeks later, though, soldiers hauled Astoria Manfredi away to a Roman prison. A year after that, his body was fished out of the river Tiber, a stone tied around his neck. Borgia justified the horrible deed with some sort of trumped up charge of treason and conspiracy. But the real problem was that he was notoriously vain and insecure. The young man was outshining him without even trying. Given Manfredi's natural talents, the prince's mere presence made Borgia seem less attractive and charismatic. The lesson is simple. If you cannot help being charming and superior, you must learn to avoid such monsters of vanity. Baby, let me highlight that one, honey, okay? Because the one child, I want that one. Let me get this one. What? Did y'all hear that? Hold on, what, did I lose it? The lesson is simple. Yes, if you cannot help being charming and superior, you must learn to avoid such monsters as vanity. Either that or find a way to mute your good qualities when in the company of a Caesar Borgia. Second, never imagine that because the master loves you, you can do anything you want. Entire books could be written about favorites who fell out of favor by taking their status for granted, for daring to outshine. In late 16th century Japan, the favorite Emperor Hideyoshi was a man called Senno-riku, the premier artist of the tea ceremony, which had become an obsession with the nobility. He was one of Hideyoshi's most trusted advisors, had his own apartment in the palace, and was honored throughout Japan. Yet, in 1591, Hideyoshi had him arrested and sentenced to death. Rikiyu took his own life instead. The cause for his certain change of fortune was discovered later. It seems that Rikiyu, former peasant and later court favorite, had a wooden statue made of himself wearing sandals, a sign of nobility in their culture, and posing loftily. He had this statue placed in the most important temple inside the palace gates, in clear sight of royalty, whom often would pass by. To Hideyoshi, this signified that Rikiyu had no sense of limits. Presuming that he had the same rights as those of the highest nobility, he had forgotten that his position depended on the emperor. and had come to believe that he had earned it on his own. This was an unforgettable miscalculation of his own importance, and he paid for it with his life. Remember the following: never take your position for granted, and never let any favors you receive go to your head. Baby, hold on. Let me highlight that one too, child. It said again, never take your position for granted, and never let any favors you receive go to your head. Knowing the dangers of outshining your master, you can turn this law to your advantage. First, you must flatter and puff up your master. Basically, blow smoke up their ass, kiss that ass, and do whatever you need to do to that ass to get back in favor with them. Overt flattery can be effective, but has its limits. It is too direct and obvious and looks bad to other quarters. Discreet flattery is much more powerful. If you are more intelligent than your master, for example, seem the opposite. Make him appear more intelligent than you are. Act naive. Make it seem that you need his expertise. Commit harmless mistakes that will not hurt you in the long run, but will give you the chance to ask for his help. Masters adore such requests. A master who cannot bestow on you the gift of his expertise may direct rancor and ill will at you instead. If your ideas are more creative than your master's, ascribe them to him in as public a manner as possible. Make it clear that your advice is merely an echo of his advice. If you surpass your master in wit, it is okay to play the role of the court jester. The fool, y'all. They asking you to play the fool to make this person comfortable. But do not make him appear cold and surly by comparison. Tone down your sense of humor if necessary, and find ways to make him seem the dispenser of amusement and good cheer. If you are naturally more sociable and generous than your master, be careful not to be the cloud that blocks his radiance from others. He must appear as the sun around which everyone evolves, radiating power and brilliance, the center of attention. If you are thrust into the position of entertaining him, a display of your limited means may win you his sympathy. Any attempt to impress him with your grace and generosity can prove fatal. Learn from Farquaad and pay the price. Learn from Farquaad or pay the price. In all of these cases, it is not a weakness to disguise your strength if in the end they lead to power. Baby, this book is saying a word, ain't it? Hold on. Wait a minute. Let me just hold on. Maybe that's a good one. Hold on. It says it is not a weakness to disguise your strength if in the end they lead to power. By letting others outshine you, you remain in control instead of being a victim of their insecurity. This will all come in handy the day you decide to rise above your inferior status. If, like a Leo, you can make your master shine even more in the eyes of others, then you are a godsend, and you will be instantly promoted. The reversal part of it is you cannot worry about upsetting every person you come across, but you must be selectively cruel. If your superior is a falling star, there is nothing to fear from outshining him. Do not be merciful. Your master had no such scrupulous in his own cold-blooded climb to the top. Gouge his strength. If he is weak, discreetly hasten his downfall. Outdo, outcharm, outsmart him at key moments. If he is very weak and ready to fall, let nature take its course. Do not risk outshining a feeble superior. It might appear cruel or spiteful. But if your master is firm in his position, yet you know yourself to be the more capable, bide your time and be patient. It is the natural course of things that power eventually fades and weakens. Your master will fall someday, and if you play it right, you would outlive and someday outshine him. Baby, what y'all think about the end of Law 1? To sum it all up, it was basically saying avoid outshining the masters. All superiority is audacious, but the superiority of a subject over his prince is not only stupid, it is fatal. This is a lesson that the stars in the sky teach us. They may be related to the sun and just as brilliant, but they never appear in her company. Baby, they say no matter how good you are, you better not outshine the master. What was your favorite part of this? Let me know in the comments below. And if you haven't already, please like, comment, and subscribe. Bye.